Toronto's new protest bylaw sparks debate at anti-Black racism committee meeting. Welcome to Regent Park TV. I'm Jabin. Today, we're presenting a segment from a recent meeting of Toronto's Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee. At the center of the discussion was a major civic issue, the city's new protest exclusion zone bylaw, set to take effect July 2nd. The bylaw prohibits demonstrations within 50 meters of schools, hospitals, and places of worship. Passed by Toronto City Council in a 16-9 vote, the measure has sparked concern among advocates and members of the advisory committee, who argue it could infringe on charter rights and disproportionately impact Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. This conversation matters deeply to residents in Regent Park and across the downtown east, where public protest has historically been a vital tool in the fight for housing, equity, and social services. Several Regent Park residents were present during the meeting, sharing their perspectives and raising questions about how the bylaw will be enforced, and why equity-deserving communities were not meaningfully consulted. As a civic issue, this bylaw raises broader questions about how public space is governed, whose voices are heard, and how decisions at City Hall affect those on the margins. Up next, we bring you a portion of the city's presentation and the conversation that followed, featuring city staff, advisory committee members, and community residents. You'll hear from James Lapierre, Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategy and Integration at the City Manager's Office, who presented the implementation plan for upcoming changes affecting access to social infrastructure.
Good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is James Lapierre, as was mentioned, Deputy Chief of Staff in the City Manager's Office, and very privileged and pleased to be here with you this morning presenting on this important topic of upcoming changes impacting access to social infrastructure in the City of Toronto. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide an overview of the upcoming changes regarding access to social infrastructure and to seek this committee's input on the city's community-focused communication plan related to these changes. In December 2024, City Council directed the City Manager to work closely with the City Solicitor and consult with key divisions, the Toronto Police Services, and other stakeholders, including conducting robust public consultation, and report back with a proposed bylaw focused on protecting certain vulnerable institutions by addressing impacts of demonstrations in consideration of charter protections. You see in front of you the council direction specifically that was put forward. And so when staff begun this work, we were very mindful about the needs, priorities, and interests to be considered. The city is committed to ensuring the safety and well-being of all residents while also respecting charter rights and freedoms. It was important to acknowledge that prohibiting peaceful gatherings, protests, or demonstrations, including any such activities that occur as part of labor, union strikes, information pickets, and other related activities related to labor disputes were not part of the bylaw prohibitions. To inform the development of the bylaw, staff undertook a multi-pronged public consultation approach that included an online survey, virtual public consultations, a community-focused discussions. Extensive public consultations were conducted to gather diverse perspectives and ensure that the proposed bylaw amendment reflected the needs and concerns of various communities across Toronto. The public consultation period ran from March 17th through to May 1st. The nature of the subject matter of the public consultation required careful consideration of the most appropriate spaces and methods to facilitate safe and constructive consultations, henceforth the multi-pronged approach through various methods and means. The consultation approach also needed to prioritize inclusivity, safety, access, and privacy. So I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that the subject matter was complex and sensitive. As part of these consultations and discussions, we heard very deep concerns and strong frustration from the community. It was very important to ensure that council and the public heard the sentiments of this topic, And that's why all consultation and information related to the consultations was provided in the city staff report that was provided to council. This included themed summaries from each of the consultation methods, the consultant's full report, as well as dozens of verbatim comments that we were able to quote based on the feedback that we received. So from those consultations, the key themes that emerged were as follows. There was a polarization of opinion in terms of strong support, but also strong opposition to a potential proposed bylaw. There were great concerns about the potential infringement of rights that were protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There was some support, of course, for demonstrations in Toronto. The ability for the city to explore and utilize other existing enforcement tools to address concerns about demonstration was also highlighted across the consultation methods. And there was a lack of clarity about the definition of vulnerable institutions. And in the council direction, it did speak to the term vulnerable institutions, and many of the consultations indicated that people were vulnerable, not places. And so we were adamant to reflect that in our feedback as well. So through directed engagement with Indigenous, Black, and community-deserving residents and communities, we received feedback expressing the critical importance of demonstrations in the way that people go about expressing their democratic rights in the city, and the potential negative impact on freedom of expression and civil engagement. So as a result of the consultation across those various methods and means, as well as working closely with our internal divisions, stakeholders, and the city solicitor, in May, staff reported back to council with a proposed bylaw amendment. And at the council meeting, as many of you, I'm sure, tuned in for, on May 22nd, council voted on several amendments to the staff proposed bylaw and adopted an amended bylaw which amends the city's streets and sidewalks bylaw. And this now includes an article on access to social infrastructure, which will come into force on July 2nd of this year. So what does the amended bylaw include? The amended bylaw includes several parameters and conditions that are defined, that define its application. An access area would prohibit specific behaviors on city property preventing access to social infrastructure. These prohibited behaviors are outlined in the appendix of this presentation. There's a few that are outlined that you can go through in the back end of the presentation. Secondly, under the bylaw, social infrastructure is now defined as childcare centers, places of worship, or schools. If an access area is deemed in one of those social infrastructures, it would cover any city property that is within 50 meters of that particular social infrastructure. An access area is established by method of request. And the social infrastructure owner must attest that they reasonably believe that a prohibited activity may occur on city property within the prescribed distance of the access area. The access area, once denoted for that particular location, would be in effect for a one-year term. Finally, an established access area does not prohibit, again, peaceful gatherings, nor does it prohibit any activities that occur as part of a labor union strike, information pickets, or activities related to a labor dispute. Speaking about moving forward into implementation, since the adoption of the amended bylaw by council, staff have been working on various implementation activities for the administration of the bylaw for it coming into effect on July 2nd. A key area of focus for the implementation is a public education and communication plan. This plan intends to ensure that the public is aware of and understands the new regulations coming into effect. Communication about the new access area bylaw is not intended to be a one-time event. Rather, it is being planned as an ongoing activity that will continue during the early stages of the bylaw's implementation to facilitate the best outcomes possible. The input of this committee today will help inform that communication plan, and it will be important to informing a robust communication education plan that meets the needs of Toronto's diverse communities. Our objective today is to have a little bit of a discussion with you about your input and feedback on this communication education plan. So specifically, we're asking the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee for input that will support specific communications with Black Torontonians and Black communities as a result. So there are a few questions on this slide that I'll read out and then turn it back to the chairs to facilitate the discussion. And I'm happy to answer questions as well through that methodology. The questions today are really open-ended. What is the best way to communicate with and reach communities? What types of information about the bylaw would be of most interest and helpful for communities? And are there any other considerations that we need to consider or think about as we move into implementation and communicating and receiving input from the community? So with that, I'll pause there and turn it back to the chairs for hopefully a little bit of a discussion. I know that's probably a little bit atypical for a committee, but hopefully we can be engaged today.
Absolutely, and we're grateful for the presentation, and thanks for joining us, James. We do have 6 registered speakers on this item. Jessica Kirk from Wild Seed Center for Art and Activism.
Hi everyone, my name is Jess Kirk. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a cultural worker, community organizer, curator, writer, and executive director of the Wild Seed Center for Art and Activism. Wild Seed Center is a 10,000 square foot Black art space in downtown Toronto, and our focuses are threefold. We offer artistic and educational programs, we deliver community services, and provide equitable access to bookable space. I'm here today on behalf of Wild Seed Center, as well as a member of the Coalition for Charter Rights and Freedoms, which comprises of organizations that rely on charter rights and freedoms to advocate in the public interest for social justice and change. Over the past few months, the Center, this coalition, a range of activist groups, Black-led organizations, and the general public grew activated by the Council's decision to direct the City Manager's Office to produce a bubble bylaw, since it raises glaring concerns of violating both Canadian Charter rights and freedoms and the international right to peaceful assembly. What's more, the City's consultative process to develop the proposal has been an absolute insult to its citizens. Throughout its intake period, a number of organizations and community members have raised concerns about the survey's validity, its objectivity, and its framing. Not only has the city failed to collect postal codes in the survey, in-person consultations were also strictly facilitated through invitation or direct request to the CMO. During the city's virtual consultations, attendees were also overwhelmingly opposed to the bylaw. Yet here we are discussing its implementation only after being approved by City Council, many of whose constituents were vocally resistant to the bylaw. If the CMO placed such strong value on consulting with marginalized groups, I'm still unclear as to what the usefulness of bringing it forward to a specialty group is following its approval. The irony of discussing the bylaw here is that if it had been in existence 9 years ago, BLMTO, the members of whom actually co-founded the Wild Seed Center, would have been at risk of whatever penalty the bylaw is subject to have issued to citizens in violation. While organizing in response to the killing of Andrew Loku by the Toronto police, CABRAC quite literally would not have existed or would not exist without the right to protest across the city of Toronto. During the 15-day encampment outside the Toronto Police Headquarters I mentioned above, I was also involved in activism, primarily student activism across the University of Toronto's grounds. Had this bubble bylaw been in effect at the time, I would have also been personally at risk of the city's penalty while advocating for greater access to public transportation in Scarborough, better social protections for survivors of sexual assault, and justice for victims of police violence. Relatedly, while carve-outs have been made for resolving labor disputes, as mentioned by James earlier today, no attention has been paid to student protections to protest on campus grounds. So in its current configuration, the entirety of York University and the University of Scarborough, Toronto Scarborough, will be considered a bubble bylaw zone. According to Statistics Canada, tourism to the United States has plummeted this year, largely due to increased border surveillance and security amid Trump's return to presidency. During peak summer months, airline bookings are roughly 70% lower than they were this time a year ago. The Canadian Association of University Teachers has even warned its members not to against or to avoid non-essential travel to the United States. And this relates to the bubble bylaw because it serves as a warning signal. Even carve-outs and exceptions baked into its configuration, even with all of these measures in place, evidence demonstrates that the mere perception of risk limits free and legal movement, which is in and of itself, an infringement on constitutional rights. Still, for those of us with lifelong commitments to the multiplicity of resistance work, we'll continue to protest, we'll continue to demonstrate. Black activists, Black artists, space users of the Wild Seed Center, and other people of conscience refuse to allow any bylaw to limit our movement while building and sustaining movements for social change. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your experiences and your perspectives, Jessica. Any questions from the membership for Jessica? And again,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Amayire, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. You'll have to correct me, but please do go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
That's right. Thank you so much, Kali, for that wonderful presentation. I loved your statement that the passing of this bylaw was an absolute insult of the citizens of City of Toronto. But I also feel that it is also an insult to this committee to come and seek for, a communication and education plan on this bylaw when actually the committee was not involved or was not, reached out for consultation during the consultation process. So, Kari, do you think the city is perpetuating discrimination and lack of inclusion?
Thank you, Dr. Amayire. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
That's right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your question. I agree. I think that it's an absolute insult to not only constituents, but also members of this committee to come after the fact to kind of talk through public communication plans for the city to sort of clean up the mess that they've left for all of us to sort of reckon with. I believe, that it is not only an infringement to constitutional rights, charter rights and freedoms, but also there's international law in place to kind of support demonstration and protest across the board and around the world. And so this is an absolute infringement on both of those sets of sort of legal, parameters that folks are supposed to work within and support and uphold. And I agree. I think that it's also a violation of, it's racist, it's anti-Black, it's anti-Indigenous, it's anti, a lot of things. Yeah, that's all I'll say to his question.
Thanks, Jessica. Any follow-up questions? There's a couple minutes left here on the clock. Or anyone else wants to jump in? Queen, I see you. You have a question for the deputant?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation. And you essentially said what a lot of us are feeling here on the Cabaret Committee.
Thanks so much, Queen.
In the room, we have Waleed. Go ahead, Waleed.
Thank you, Jessica. It's nice seeing you again. And thank you for the great work that you do supporting our communities. One of the things that stood out with what you said was that protests will not be permissible in many spaces, including college campuses, universities, all the change that we've experienced over the past decades, if not, since Black Lives Matter existed, would have not occurred if this bylaw existed then. So this is an infringement on the right to protest, the right to freedom of expression. I'm going to ask this question to our good friends from the city later on, but in your opinion, do you think there was any consultation to student groups, student unions, labor organizations, any community groups? Do you think that consultation should have been done better? Or do you think that even if there was a consultation, a decision was already made, and this was just an exercise of public relations to say we were listening? So I'd love to get your honest opinion on that, because it's a pretty serious bylaw, and its implications are going to be widespread.
I do. So Wild Seed Center was contacted by the CMO asking this whole conversation that I sort of worked into my speaking notes around invite-only consultations. Like we were personally, or I guess like organizationally invited to be involved in some sort of consultative process. And while those conversations were occurring, there were no sort of public engagements on in-person consultations. And so my perspective and our organizational perspective is that it was a really tokenistic decision on the city's part. The decision had already been made that there would be a bylaw that was going to be proposed and presented to the floor, and so it didn't really it felt like a waste of our time and a slap in the face to be engaged and involved in an invite-only process in the way that they sort of carved things out. And like I said, there had been a lot of public discussion, and even in the spaces facilitated by the city through these virtual consultative processes, the questions around whether or not this bylaw should even exist or be put forward, the responses to those questions were overwhelmingly opposed to the creation of this bylaw. So again, I think that I know that protests will continue to happen. We know as people of conscience that protesting and demonstrating is a human right, and that won't stop. It's just, again, a really huge violation of a lot of sets of sort of like laws in place, but also just a slap in the face to Black communities and communities of conscience.
CABRAC was not consulted formally in the development of this bylaw. We were informed, and we were asked today to give feedback on how we can communicate to Black communities about this bylaw. Do you think it's appropriate for such a path, for such a sort of hey, you know what? CABRAC has a mandate. We're going to ignore that mandate for now, and we're going to make a decision and then tell you that we need your support and advice on how to implement it. Do you believe that CABRAC should have been part of the discussion from day one to talk about how this bylaw will impact Black communities in the city of Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, the committee I'm sure that the committee has the power to decide what level of engagement they actually want to take up with respect to the questions that James put forward. You know, like how do we talk to Black people about what is going to be happening? How do we, what information is most useful or important to share with communities? Like you folks can decide if you actually want to meaningfully engage with it, if you think that it's, time well spent. But I think that the approaches taken around the creation of this bylaw were not appropriate, just not appropriate. And again, there's a lot of legal grounds for the approaches that the city is taking to the creation of this bylaw. I cited, the Canadian Charter of Freedoms, Rights and Freedoms, as well as international law that this violates. And so there's a lot more cleaning up that the city will have to do in response to the approval of this bylaw. But yeah, I also think that it's a little bit of it's pretty anti-Black to be bringing these questions to the floor for you folks to sort of reckon with.
Thank you.
Thanks, Waleed, and thank you, Jessica. Any other questions from members? Yeah? May, go ahead.
Hi, it's more so just a comment, but after everything you said, I just wanted to say thank you. And specifically, you said a part that, without protest, there would not even be a committee such as this. So taking in the work that we do, that this bylaw is stopping this kind of work that we're doing today. So I just wanted to point that out, and thank you.
Miguel Avila Velarde.
Thanks for allowing me to speak on this topic of confronting anti-Black racism in the city of Toronto. I'm here as an ally to provide solidarity with this group, because I am one of the participants during the consultation process who said no to this bylaw. And that was the sentiment shared by so many people in the consultations. And unfortunately, city councilors at the meeting, last city council, they choose to ignore the sentiment of the people. that say this bylaw is an infringement on our civil liberties and our freedoms. As a 15-year-old protester of the city of Toronto, they call me the professional protester. So to me, I feel that this was not necessary. It was not necessary to go too far to cut our voices, our rights to talk, to speak, to share our feelings, to critique our government if they're doing wrong. And I'm just also troubled by other governments of levels of government that are thinking about implementing several legislations in relation to bubble zones at the provincial level, at the federal level. I think Toronto should not get involved in this business. Why don't we let them do the dirty work? I will advise the city to listen to the city solicitor and release the comments made by the city solicitor that were not available to residents of Toronto. And the city of Toronto has an obligation to be open and transparent with the residents of Toronto. So we are here now invited to give our opinion on a bylaw that has been already unjustly passed by City Council. I applaud those members of City Council that say, no, I disagree with this. And I'm so sorry for those councilors who voted yes. I'm sure when the election comes in 2026, a lot of people, they're gonna take their jobs. So it's troubling that our rights and freedoms across this country are being reduced. And my communication that I will give to the communities, fight back. Don't be afraid. We have been before in these situations. When I started in 1991, my advocacy work as police accountability, we have TABIS. TABIS at the time was criminalizing everybody in Toronto community housing and city streets. And what happened? We were able to defeat that unfair practice of the Toronto police. And here we are, requesting the police to come. We don't know whether those bubble zones are going to be. It's so complex. It's so difficult to understand the logic of the city councilors who voted yes. I think they have hidden agendas.
Sorry,
that
Miguel.
I'm willing to say it in public.
I just want to keep you on track here because we do want to hear your comments specific to the implementation, right? We can't go back, unfortunately, and we are where we are today. So I know there's a lot of important work ahead, and I just want to center us on the item at hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Moni, for keeping me in track. Let's talk to the Ontario Human Rights, just like Waleed mentioned, and other members of the committee and deputies. They prefer to find the guidance of the Ontario Human Rights in this matter. So that's the way to move forward, and hopefully a motion is made today. Thank you so much for your time. I hope.
Thank you, Miguel. We appreciate your advocacy and solidarity. Appreciate your voice, and we'll open to questions from the floor. Waleed has one. Go ahead, Waleed.
Miguel, thank you for joining us. You are a well-known personality at City Hall, but you're also a well-known personality on the streets. You've been to a lot of demonstrations, a lot of protests. And, protests are critically important in an open and democratic society. It's how you and I and folks who are seeking change can demand so. It's a way to educate folks. It's a way to make sure that those who have the responsibility to govern understand the challenges. You talked about those members of council that supported this bylaw. One of them is Mayor Olivia Chow, who is also the founder for the Institute, one of the founders for the Institute for Change Leaders. So my question to you is, what advice would you give the mayor who's in support of this bylaw, how can we move forward if this bylaw is going to be implemented started July 2025?
My advice to the mayor is to seek the deep inside her archive of experience as an activist and look that this law is not a fair law for indigenous, Black people, and I'm sure there will be some legal challenges before July, the implementation of this bylaw. And I hope that Olivia Cho can do the right thing to say, I made a mistake. I supported an unfair law, that I was pressured, maybe I was pressured to vote yes, because we live in a geopolitical turmoil where issues like Gaza, issues like indigenous rights right now are hot items on the newspapers and social media. So I do hope Olivia Chow have a second sober consideration of this matter, and she hopefully see the lights at the end of the tunnel, that she needs to vote against this in the second round.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on social media, and for more information, check out our website.